Welcome to Talk Travel with Heather Tate, North Mississippi's podcast for savvy travelers. Talk Travel with Heather Tate is a weekly podcast that airs every Monday on the Shark 102.3 FM radio station based in Ripley, Mississippi, and is then released as a podcast. Travel advisor and travel enthusiast Heather Tate of Whimsical Destinations gives listeners expert travel tips curated through the years of personal and professional experience. By clicking subscribe, you'll have a new travel tip to add to your collection delivered to your podcast library every Monday. Talk Travel with Heather Tate is brought to you by Sun Bear Studio. Sun Bear Studio is a boutique recording studio in the heart of Ripley, Mississippi. When you record with us at Sun Bear Studio, we can mix, master, register, and publish your music, your podcast, or your family story. Email us when you're ready at sunbear@jc.media.
Good morning, Northeast Mississippi travelers. This is Heather with Talk Travel with Heather Tate, and I'm so excited to share my tried and true tips with you and adventures, whether you are also a seasoned traveler, a hopeful traveler, or currently an armchair traveler, meaning you're going to follow along with us from home for now. This is our 181st episode of Talk Travel with Heather Tate, and you are in for a treat today because I have asked my favorite aviation expert to join me to discuss all of the new flight itineraries on the radar for 2026. Welcome to my 13-year-old son, London. How are you doing, London?
Good. Thank you for having me.
I really didn't have much of a choice because you've been begging me to do this podcast episode.
Begging may be an exaggeration.
Well, after you presented it to me, I'm really excited about it. So I'm going to let you kick things off.
All right. Well, the name of this episode is Where Growth and Tourism Meet. And I believe that is truly going to be seen in the year 2026 because just with all the growth and all the prosperity that will be happening, not just in the Caribbean, but also in the U.S., in Europe, in Asia, everywhere is growing. And that is a beautiful sight. Because I grew up watching a movie, and in the movie there was this businessman, and he was talking about his industry, and he said, if we are not growing, we are dying. The movie, of course, was fictional, but I believe that quote truthfully represents the travel industry. A destination, a company, a nation, anybody with a stagnant business is in a hard predicament because they're losing the momentum of growth. Well, it is my honor to inform everyone that the travel industry is growing in 2026.
That's good news for me.
That is amazing for everybody because not only will it mean better destinations and more accessible destinations, but when airlines compete, it also means cheaper prices for the consumer.
Oh, and that is going to be good because we need some more competitive airline pricing for sure.
Exactly. And even starting domestically with, I don't know if there's any soccer fans out there, but for the FIFA World Cup coming and hosting several matches in U.S. cities this year, it's going to be amazing because all these cities, including Houston, Atlanta, Dallas, Seattle, they're all adding new flights. They're building new terminals. They're building new infrastructure in the cities. And it's just going to make a lot more interesting to have more domestic traveling options as well. Even if you don't have a passport yet, maybe you can just go to some of our beautiful cities within the U.S. before heading out.
That's a great point.
But even outside of the country, flights such as Delta Airlines have begun new flights to Australia, more flights to Europe. Two of those new destinations to Europe I want to talk about are Porto and Sardinia. So Porto, I've personally been to, and is a beautiful, beautiful city. You know, I feel like it doesn't get as much as of the headlines
That's
as much
very true.
as Paris or London or even sometimes Amsterdam. But Porto, it's beautiful because it was so important in the exploration of the world. It was such an important city for that, and it has such a nice culture. It is so laid back, and it is truly one of the hidden gems of Europe, I believe.
I completely agree. You know, when most people don't have Portugal even on their radar, and Porto is not the first city. That's Lisbon, the first city of Portugal. It's the second city. So I think it's going to be incredible for people to have an option to go somewhere that they probably have not even considered before.
Exactly. And if you listen to our past episodes, then you know of our adventure to Croatia. And I feel as if Croatia is to Italy as Portugal is to Spain. It's more off the beaten path, and you don't hear about it as much, yet it is growing in accessibility every year. and it still remains to be the awesome destination that it is.
And that's a fantastic comparison. And when you go to these places that maybe are, like you said, were off the beaten path, what you're getting then is more authenticity. And that is something that is huge for 2026. People want experiences that are not cookie cutter, or maybe they're experiences they haven't had before. And when you go to these destinations that are the new destinations for airlines, you're getting that experience.
Exactly. And that is, it's funny that you said that, because that is one of the major appeals for our next destination, which is Sardinia. Because Sardinia is a large island off the coast of Italy, and it is Italian. It has beautiful mountains. Its economy still depends on agriculture, although it is shifting steadily towards tourism. But what's beautiful is its isolation from the rest of Italy has sort of halted it in that development. Not to say it's not getting developed, its roads and its infrastructure are continuously improving. Yet, I feel like that with Italy, it's still commercialized. You still have beautiful parts of it, but if you go to Rome or somewhere, it may look more comparable to a U.S. like New York or L.A. than maybe your dream Italian countryside. Toward Sardinia, its isolation sort of worked in its favor. And so now you have the authentic experience, but it's no longer isolated with these new flights beginning.
So it kind of feels like it's been frozen in time.
Exactly.
I love that.
Exactly. So now it's like, but then it's not hard to get to. So it's that perfect balance between it is at that beautiful stage where it is frozen in time, yet it is still now easy to get to. And you really want to capitalize on that, because we don't know how long that will last, because wherever growth goes, more development comes. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes you may lose more of the authentic experiences.
You want to be on the front end of that, is what
Exactly.
you're saying. I like that. And you know what stood out to me about Sardinia, when I know that you were really excited about this? And I don't know if you remember, but a few months ago, Delta actually let its customers vote on these new routes, and two of those were chosen, Porto and Sardinia. But why Sardinia stood out to me is because it's a blue zone, and it's one of the original 5 blue zones in the world. And all that means is it is known for its exceptional longevity of its inhabitants. Like, the people there live longer and they live healthier. And Sardinia is at the top of that list. So I really think we need to look into planning a trip to Sardinia this year. What do you think?
I think Sardinia would be a beautiful, beautiful place to visit. But, of course, this is barely scratching the surface on the tourism expansion going on around the world this year. But let's focus in on sort of our neighbor in our backyard, which is the Caribbean.
My favorite.
Everyone's favorite. The Caribbean is a remarkable region because it's where these dream vacations meet reality. Because you look at it, Sardinia is beautiful, yet you're still probably an 8-hour flight away. And if you live in Mississippi, you're looking at a layover as well, to where you can have these direct connections to all these Caribbean islands and still indulge in that beautiful culture. And it's only 2.5 hours to 4 hours away.
Oh, much closer.
Much
easier
closer.
for a shorter trip, not needing a full 7 to 8 days.
And I believe that's truly one thing that's amazing. And the Caribbean is the truth is, it's the untold story of growth, family, and resilience. This last year, if you've been following the news and everything, you know that Hurricane Melissa devastated part of Jamaica, which for our family is like a second home. Yet even through the devastation, Jamaica is building back stronger. That is something I really want to capitalize on in this podcast, because when a hurricane hits, you think of devastation and you think of a hard time in economic, but no, somehow Jamaica has found a way to use this disadvantage as a cornerstone for innovation. They are using this to build new roads, to add extra luxurious resorts, to expand in their airports. So the Jamaica that's opening back up, and it's already opened back up.
Yes,
That's important to note.
Yeah.
But parts of it are even opening back up in May. It is opening back stronger than it was when Hurricane Melissa, and that's truly beautiful to see. And I believe that these airlines are beginning to recognize the growth in the Caribbean as well. You see, Delta Airlines, they launched direct flights to St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Grenada.
And a lot of people haven't even heard of those 2 islands.
That's true, in the Eastern Caribbean.
What's important then about these 2 islands is not only are they islands where there's sandals resorts that are located, so I have been to both of those, but it's going to be very important to you because we're about to go on a cruise where we will visit both of those islands.
That is true, and make sure to be following the Facebook page because we will have the pictures and everything for those islands. And maybe a cruise isn't your forte, then you have these easy access air flights to these beautiful destinations. And here's the thing: these airlines, they truly are recognizing it because the jets that are carrying you to these destinations, they take a full crew, they take a full day between there and back, and they cost about $100 million per jet. So an airline would not dedicate that amount of money and assets to a place that it didn't believe in. And I believe that's
a good point.
And that's truly the beautiful thing. And I just feel like the Caribbean nations, they're beginning to use their geographic position, dedicated workforce, tranquil beaches, and more to grow their economies. So anything that suggests the Caribbean is growing weaker has been misinformed. And that is a blessing to know that it's getting stronger, not weaker, because on behalf of the hardworking men and women in this region, it has never been as accessible, as seamless, as personalized, and as advanced as it will be in 2026.
I love that, London, and that's all true. And one thing I just want to point out that is true about St. Vincent and the Grenadines. One reason why a lot of people haven't been able to go there before, why Delta has not gone there before, is because they had to come up with an entire new international airport, a new runway, because they literally had to move a mountain to make room for this new runway in order to accommodate these larger planes that are now going to be able to come. So that wasn't even possible just a few years ago. On Valentine's Day, just a few years ago, it opened up where they now can receive larger planes.
Well, and that all goes back to the two points: resilience and growth. Because here in the U.S., if something were to ever happen, we can get cargo or we could get assistance from easy access roads or planes or something. But these islands, for the most part, they are on their own, so they have to balance this growth, but at the same time realizing that when they get hit with a devastating disaster like Hurricane Melissa, that they cannot use it as an excuse to give up, but instead they're going to use it as that cornerstone for innovation. And I'm proud to say that's what Jamaica's doing. That is what you see the common story in all of these Caribbean nations, and I believe just from knowing these people that is what they're going to continue doing in the future.
And I will say you're just advanced knowledge of airlift throughout the Caribbean and the world has been very beneficial to me because you know more about the new flights and routes and itineraries than I could dream, because this is a hobby for you, it's a passion for you, so you know so much about it. And one thing that you were telling me about in the past was how this time of year, and I know that's one if we can only touch on one more thing, I would like to talk about how this time of year from Christmas to April is when we're going to see the most growth for the Caribbean in these nonstop routes.
That is very true. This is an experimental time of the year with these seasonal flights. So basically, these airlines, they experiment by adding these new flights for maybe a few months from December to April, and they bring them back. I'm proud to say that many of the flights, if not all of them, that Delta Airlines launched last season, they're bringing back this season on top of others. So that shows growth, and that shows a continued trust and investment in the Caribbean's future.
Because this is their peak travel time in the Caribbean is right now. When it's cold throughout most of the northern hemisphere, the Caribbean is where you want to be. And
that's also encouragement to go ahead and book your vacation. It may, there's still plenty of time to book, even for February, maybe March.
That's right. Get some good last-minute deals.
Get some amazing last-minute deals, or even if you want a little more time, book for next year, because this truly is the best time to have the best access and just to experience the Caribbean. That's a region on the rise.
And so when you can typically book flights starting 11 months out, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't already book your resort for this time next year, so then you're watching. And now you know that if you're booking between late December and April, you have a lot more options. And I have some guests just the other day that because I knew that Delta had added flights to Curacao, thanks to you, London, they were able to book their trip not in May like they were originally thinking, but we moved it back a couple months where they're actually going sooner, and they're going in March where they could get those nonstop Delta flights from Atlanta to Curacao. Anything else you want to leave us with, London? Thank you so much for all this information.
I believe that's about it. But I just want to say that it's truly important to see that the Caribbean, they are growing. Sometimes it can be so easy to assume that if one thing like Hurricane Melissa happens, that they're headed in the wrong direction. Yet that's just simply, I'm proud to say that is not the truth, and they are bouncing back stronger than they were before.
I love that. Thank you, London.
Thank you.
Thank you for all that you've shared with us about the new routes. And I think when I leave here, I'm going to start planning where else we're going to go in 2026. Just don't tell your dad that.
All right. Thank you.
That's all the time we have for this week's episode of Talk Travel with Heather Tate and London Tate. Whatever you're doing this week, whatever adventures you're planning on having, take that trip. Make those memories. You won't regret it.
This show is made possible by JC Media, LLC in Ripley, Mississippi. JC Media owns the Shark 102.3 Classic Rock FM radio station where the show is hosted, and Sun Bear Recording Studio where the interviews are recorded. We need your feedback and support. If you listen to the podcast on a player like iTunes, Google Podcast, or Amazon Music, please subscribe to the show and leave us a review. We also have an email in which you can share your feedback. That email is theshark1023@gmail.com. Subscribe to our podcast on your favorite app or stream episodes online at shark1023.com/podcasts. Today's episode was produced by Melinda Marsalis. It was edited by Rick Williams and engineered by Chris Marsalis. The podcast technician is Joyce Grady.